Welcome to the Jones Zone, a podcast by Darryl and JJ Jones.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Jones Zone. Today, we're going to meet with Stiles. She's a professional home stager. I've known Christy for years. In fact, she's staged some of my highest selling listings ever. I'm so excited to have her. I think it was 4 years to finally get this date booked. She's so busy. Thank you. Thank you, Christy. I think the audience is going to really, I've always been fascinated with staging myself, frankly. So we'll just go ahead and jump right into it. Ladies and gentlemen, Christy Stiles. Say hi to the audience, both of them.
Hi, audience.
So, hey, it's funny. I started selling real estate 33 plus years ago, and we didn't do any staging. Staging was, what's staging? Frankly, it was just the new home builders. I think that's where it kind of navigated into the resale market. And now I would say probably a good 40 to 50% are staging or so. I'm not quite sure on that. But it's
Depends on the
so,
market.
yeah, that's true. It's so important, and because it's so effective. So I'm so happy to have Christy on. So Christy, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm actually the owner of Staging Stiles. I am starting my 10th year of doing home staging. Time has flown by. I can't believe it's been 10 years. I started very small and just grew throughout the years, literally through referrals. And that's how I got to where I am 10 years later.
Well, she does a phenomenal job. Okay, I'm going to let you explain. I mean, some of these questions you may think, well, Darryl, you know this, but I'm going to let you explain it. So explain the concept of home staging and why is it so important in selling a home to get it staged?
Okay, so I kind of want to go back first to what you were saying, where years ago, nobody had even really heard of staging, and it kind of stemmed from maybe model homes and so forth. So
Right.
Think about when you walk into a model home versus a resale home, right? It's all brand new. It's fresh. Everything's put together. There's no clutter. It's not personalized, right? So that's kind of the same thing. I mean, that is what staging is. So it is taken from the model of model homes, but now doing it with people's resale homes. The concept of home staging is to get the seller's home ready for the market. How a person lives in their home on a day-to-day basis is so different than how you have to prepare your house to sell it. A professional stager will examine the property with an objective eye, and they'll make recommendations to give the home that wow factor to entice as many potential buyers as possible. Staging is important in making a home look the best that it can. It will also show as the best product on the MLS. Really, you only have one chance to make that real first impression. So staging is super important.
Now, I tell people, it's kind of obvious after I say it, but why does a person buy the house that they ultimately buy opposed to the other 35 homes that they saw? It's by the way they feel when they're in the house. And that has to do with the staging and possibly upgrades too. It may or may not sound simplistic. And then also back to the new home builders, everything they do is data driven. So the data's in on this. Staged homes, I read, I think 6.7% more price, sell for 6.7, at least 6 to 10% more than unstaged homes. See, it's hard to nail that down because it depends on the home and how it looked originally, but there's no doubt it sells for more money. So it's a kind of a no-brainer. So what factors do you take into consideration when working with a home? How do you determine the target market for a property?
There's two major factors. One is the house occupied, meaning are the people who are selling the home going to be living in that home while they sell it? Or is it going to be a vacant house? So those are two big factors when determining how to stage and our consideration of what we're doing when we prepare to stage a home. Many homes have been lived in for a long time, so a lot of times they need some upgrades, some TLC. Some homes need a lot of work. So that kind of comes down to the budget of the seller and what they're willing and able to do to prepare their house and get it to look good. Again, paint, new carpet, things like that. So one of the first things that we do want to address with the sellers and the agent is knowing about these upgrades and the fixes that are going to happen to the home, because again, that helps us determine what we need to do as stagers to bring that wow factor into the home. Determining the target market of the property is done by either knowing the area really well or obviously having that discussion with the agent who knows that target market. Who is the audience? What's the demographics? Is the home in the area more for families or is it more on working professionals? And is it in a rural area or is it a downtown metro area? These factors determine the target market and also how we choose to stage a home. If it's a downtown condo for professional working adults, it's going to be staged a lot different than a rural house for families. So really just understanding the target market and where the house is located is really the driving factor of how we determine how we're going to stage a house.
Yeah, and the style of the architecture. I know that we've had some houses, let's say, are contemporary and some that are bungalows from the 50s. It's obviously you wouldn't want to put, it's funny that you talked about upgrades. We've done this, of course, before. Many times, Chrissy will even choose colors because you know colors so well in terms of what recommendations to paint the house. Because little things like that may or may not sound important, are enormously important. Enormously important. In fact, I have a story where I sold this same identical model match property. They were same floor plan. Really, one was upgraded a little bit more, but the only difference was the color and the flooring. And it wasn't super expensive flooring. It was just more stylish, let's say. And the one with the more stylish, it sold for $25,000 to $30,000 more from my memory. The cool part, I could arrange financing for people where they can, put in whatever upgrades are necessary to improve the value of the home and the sales price. But okay.
Right. Let me just piggyback on that as well. So a professional home stager should really have a lot of design knowledge as well. So going into previewing a home, our recommendations need to be on a professional level too, meaning if they're asking for suggestions on paint or should they paint or their flooring and us picking the flooring and so forth, a professional stager should have good knowledge of what is going to help make that house sell today, not 10 years ago, but today. It's really important to stay current on the trends too.
We've talked before about how I know that the taupes and the tans used to be 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 7 years ago, really kind of the in color. And now it's, would you fair to say grays and blues, or what do you tell us more? What are your thoughts?
It changes constantly. And again, it is going to depend on the style of the home too. But it is quite amazing how so many people are going with white walls, more the lighter colors right now, which really appear cold. So when somebody is selling their home, I won't encourage them to paint their whole house white. I know it's kind of the more economical route to go because you're just doing one whole color throughout the house. So I understand. So if that's all the budget's going to allow, obviously we will bring in color in other areas to help offset kind of the stark cold feel that is. But yeah, the lighter colors, not the taupey browns, things like that, but just neutrals are always good when you're selling your home. Not everybody likes that white because it's a little more modern. Again, not as warm of a feel.
I've noticed that, though I have seen some white homes when they're staged by you and they look good.
Oh, sure, of course.
The color also will make, and this may sound minor, but that's kind of the magic. Some of this stuff is so minor, but it makes an enormously big deal in the sales price and everything. So when you have the not white, it makes the baseboards pop. It makes the fresh light switches and plugs pop. Everything pops better. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Is a better feel. Is it possible for homeowners to stage their own homes, or is it better to hire a professional stager? I wonder what she's going to say here.
I think everybody should stage their own home. Of course, you need to hire a professional stager. I was thinking about this, and obviously you're going to say, if somebody says, should I sell my house on my own or should I hire a real estate agent? Because then I got to pay a commission, right? So it's kind of the same with any profession that you're in. If I needed a new air conditioning unit, I am certainly not going to put that AC unit in myself. I'm going to get it done right. If I tried to put it in, I'm going to spend money to try to put it in, and then I'm probably going to have to turn to a professional because it wasn't done right. Kind of the same with home staging, to be honest, and has happened actually numerous times throughout my career. Agents will tell a homeowner kind of what to do to prep their house to go on the market. The homeowner will do that checklist. It goes on the market, and then the agent calls me and goes, "We're not getting any interest in the house. Can you come and take a look?" And all of a sudden now I have a whole different to-do list for them. And we're revamping everything. And now the house looks like a complete different house. So yes, you should always hire a home stager. And mind you, there's also houses that we go and look at that are beautiful and maybe only need a little bit of editing. But again, to bring in that objective eye, somebody who's not attached to the house, just to do those small tweaks, it's so worth it. Again, even if it's just to come in and do that little consultation or redoing a whole house.
Yeah, a fresh set of eyes. I mean, you don't notice everything. And it's funny, You said cost. I heard an attorney say this one too. Oh, you think I'm expensive? Try hiring a cheap attorney and find out how expensive that is via the mistakes they make.
Exactly. Or a tax accountant. I mean, how many times, you hear that all the time too. So again, let me do my job. I'm going to let the realtor do their job, and I'm going to let the AC person put my new AC in. That's what makes the world go around.
So can you provide some budget-friendly home staging tips for homeowners looking to improve the appeal of the property without breaking the bank? Maybe some simple tasks. Actually, I have something in mind, but I'm going to ask you. Go ahead.
Okay. So this is kind of when we do just kind of a consultation where somebody's budget may not allow to actually hire me to do a full stage. So we'll come in and we'll kind of do a walk and talk, and we'll walk each room and give them a list of things to do for each room, really to prepare that room. They're economical, I think, in my eyes. What I want them to understand is not one, please don't take what I say personally. Two is we're trying to get your house to bring in as many potential buyers as possible. So everything that I have to say is from a professional standpoint. None of it is personal. And then we kind of walk and talk, like I said. So for instance, when you walk into a dining room and somebody has converted it into a home office, as we know, a lot of people need home offices, right? Well, when you're selling your house, that space needs to be converted back into a dining room. And those are things that when you're not in this industry, you may not even think of. Or let's say somebody has a formal living room, they use it twice a year, right? So they're not even in that space, so they don't even notice certain things in that space. Well, if I walk into that space and I'm walking immediately into the back side of a huge sofa, now my potential buyers don't have a good flow of that room, because they can't even get into it. So really kind of explaining to them the purpose of why maybe big pieces of furniture need to come out, why personal pictures, collectibles, anything that's making that house specifically personal to that homeowner needs to be removed so that new potential buyers can envision themselves in the home and in each of the spaces, but they have to be able to come into each of the space to get that feeling.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about when you walk into the room, because oftentimes that living room is right when you walk in the front door, and when there's the back of a couch, opposed to it being placed in a different place and opening up the room. And it literally makes the room definitely feel bigger. Well, I guess only feel bigger, which is, of course, the point. Back to the point of, how does the house feel to that buyer? And that's what causes them to write.
Yep. And also, I think the number one thing, really, the two things that every realtor should be telling their clients is immediately you need to start depersonalizing and decluttering your house, period. Because if there's clutter in your house, the only thing that potential buyer is going to see is that clutter. And if there's a wall of family pictures, guess what? That potential buyer is not going to feel like it is their home because they're seeing who lives there.
I'll often tell clients, because it is frustrating. I mean, I don't know anybody that likes selling their house because there's some work involved.
A lot of work, right.
And I'll tell them, look, this is not something that you have to do in addition to everything else. This is something you're going to need to do anyway, because you're packing all your stuff up. You're just going to do it now, get more money, or do it later and get less money.
Right.
It's no extra work. Tell me, what are the most important rooms, in your opinion, that need to be staged? All of them, huh?
All of them. Let's take an occupied house first, okay? Because we're talking two different things here. So in an occupied house, every single room needs to be staged because every single room is lived in. So you absolutely need to declutter and depersonalize every single room when you're living in your house, when you're selling it. When it's a vacant home, you can get away with maybe not staging secondary bedrooms, but you absolutely have to do all the main spaces, including the main bedroom, the main bathroom. And sometimes you can just do minimal, but when you say minimal, some stagers are too minimal. So there really is a happy medium. And this just comes from experience of doing what we do. You can't have too much and you can't have too little. There really is a happy medium in there.
Well, and sometimes you've made suggestions that frankly can be somewhat minor in terms of time and work, and it makes an enormous difference. I mean, just rearranging furniture, that alone oftentimes will just create a completely different home.
It does. And there are times when we walk into a house and really we're working with just what they have. Most of the time we'll remove furniture and just put it into their garage, what have you, just to open up spaces again, to get that nice flow that you really need so people can get into spaces. Most importantly, I would definitely say just the depersonalizing.
Oftentimes I've found that sellers are somewhat intimidated by it and or think it's a lot of work and stuff. And I sometimes will have sellers that say, no, just real little staging, or they think they have to remove all their furniture. And I go, no, 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 no. You don't need to remove all your furniture or anything like that whatsoever, because it is laborious. Sometimes it doesn't require a ton of stuff. I mean, you can get a lot done with a professional eye like yours coming to look at it, making these suggestions.
And again, that is really important for the stager to really go in and explain to the homeowners what their job, what their goal is for their house. Because you are right. Some people do think we're going to come in and tell them remove everything while they're living there and then bring everything in. And I think it's really, really important because people really do have an attachment to their things. And a good stager will really understand that if you use homeowners stuff, it makes them proud of what they have. So knowing how to talk to them, I think is really important too. A stager, just like a realtor, wears a lot of hats. And I think being a good stager versus a stager, that kind of is the difference between the two. And
bedside manner.
I agree. I think most people can go in and figure out how to make a house look okay. But I don't think everybody has the ability to really talk with sellers and get them to understand the actual staging process and what needs to take place for their specific home.
We were talking earlier about colors and design trends. Is there anything that's new out right now that maybe our audience may not even know?
When you're selling your home, it's not necessarily about what's trendy right now, because what's trendy right now isn't what appeals to the masses. What appeals to the masses is neutralizing. So again, the idea of staging is really making sure that potential buyers are not necessarily looking at the sofa that I brought in, but they're looking at the space itself.
Something that surprised me, which was you want a kind of a neutral color furniture, like whatever, and then you can make it pop with the pillows and with the blankets and things like that.
Throw
accessories.
Blanket.
Yeah, throw blankets. Well, that's why you do the staging. I don't.
Yes, correct.
What is your advice for homeowners that have already moved out of the house in vacant homes? Any advice for them?
Well, we love doing vacant homes. One, because the clutter and depersonalizing is already done. So for a home stager, it's ideal to be able to go in and just put our stamp on the entire house, because now we get to put the package together that all goes together. Sometimes it becomes challenging when we have to mix our stuff with sellers' stuff, meaning they have certain furniture and we need to enhance it. Sometimes that becomes challenging. For most stagers, I think with staging a vacant home is the best. However, I want to tell you this. Sometimes homeowners feel that if they move out, they can leave their old furniture there for staging. And my advice is, please don't ever do that.
Yeah,
let us bring it in. Let us design the whole place.
For some reason, reminded early in my career, I was shown houses and the buyers were there. My buyers, it wasn't my listing, were at the house for quite some time. And then we walked outside and I'm thinking, I wonder if they like it. And I was looking at the carpet that was at the house and I go, gosh, can you believe that carpet is atrocious? And they go, oh, that's the same carpet we have. And I go, oh, yeah. So I don't know what my point is, other than I no longer give opinions on carpets because, hey, the world's a beautiful place. Everything's subjective somewhat, but you're right. There is definitely a neutralization that can happen there where you're just not, you just appeals to the larger amount of the masses, let's say.
Yes.
Fair to say?
Fair to say. I agree.
How do you handle homeowners that are emotionally attached to their property, have a hard time making these changes?
So when I do a walk and talk with homeowners, I always start by saying, I'm going to give them a wish list. And this is a staging wish list, but this is also a professional list, meaning I'm not telling you to do things that are not going to make a difference. However, I do understand that time and budget can come into account when you're trying to sell your house. When walking through, I might suggest taking down wallpaper, painting, doing some fixing things, removing furniture. Well, somebody may not have an area to move furniture. Well, then I'm going to then ask them, are you taking that piece of furniture with you when you move? If the answer is no, now we have an opportunity just to get that out.
Too oftentimes they ask me, well, what do we need to do? I say, oh, I'm not the stager. Believe me, there's an art to this, and you need a professional in here, because as much as I've been in a million houses, and I can, of course, tell them some stuff, but it's, you need a professional stager, in my opinion. You just have to have someone that's schooled on it. And what I tell them is, look, first of all, you're the boss. We don't do anything without your approval. So you're the boss of everything, because it's pretty much a kind of a two-step process, your initial visit, and then your evaluation, your recommendations. Let's say you recommend 15 things for them to do. If they can do all 15, great. But if they can only do half of them, you're
right.
Fine. Then they tell you, hey, okay, we were able to do these 8 out of the 15 things you said. And then you evaluate what you need to bring. We load up the truck, you bring it over there. And another thing too, staging, I think oftentimes people don't realize it's done in one day.
Right.
It's not as though you're there for weeks. It's
right.
Boom, you're done.
Yeah. So again, it's really about making sure that we educate the homeowner so that they understand staging. I think people get so caught up on HGTV that they think that that's what we're doing.
Oh yeah. Full remodel. A full remodel. Right. Yeah.
And so they do. They think it's going to take a few days. It's a big, long process. I'm going to come in and tell them how terrible their house is, things like that. Obviously a good stager is never going to tell you that something looks ugly, and they shouldn't. And if they do, you should never hire that stager. Right. So just like an agent, knowing how to talk to your clients is super important. I will say, I do tell a lot of sellers that you may not like me after this visit because of what I'm going to give you list wise, but I guarantee when your house sells, I will be one of your favorite people. And 9.9 times out of 10, that is the case. You just really have to earn their trust in you, that you really truly know what you're doing, just like a real estate agent does.
When I talk to people about staging, I refer to the new home tracks, because they were doing things decades ago, far before the resale market started doing it. Again, all their stuff is by data. So it's not as if this is a theory. And when you're saying that this minor investment will make you tenfold or fivefold on your money, it's a no-brainer. I mean, my clients get free staging, but I'll take care of it. But the staging is so much worth the investment. So give me a story. You have a good story? Do you remember anything that would be, I don't know, funny or entertaining?
I have a couple of stories. I do have a story for you.
Uh-oh.
I remember when I first started working for you years ago, it's when the Browns were all in, right? Yeah. And one of the first houses that we staged for you, the walls were yellow and they weren't going to paint these. Do you remember this?
Oh, goodness. I wish I did.
Okay. So we had to work with yellow walls. Well, brown and yellow aren't good together at all. So we had to bring in some colors with this. Well, at that time, you still weren't used to color because you were still used to the neutrals, the browns, what have you. You didn't like our staging at all. Until the house sold.
Yeah, well, there you go.
You didn't like the colors that we used for the stage. Let me put it that way.
Well, hence why you're the stager and I'm not.
Right. So those challenges that we deal with all the time, people that can't afford to paint, their house is what it is. And that is what we have to deal with. And we have, for you and several others, have had to do houses where grandma and grandpa lived in it. And it looks the same as it did back in the 70s. Again, that comes from just expertise and growth of being a home stager, is learning how the heck do we stage a house with all that flower wallpaper.
Yeah, I'm reminded when you said the word yellow. When I got my house, we painted it a particular color, and I thought, well, let's kind of brighten it up a little bit. We'll paint the kitchen yellow. So we painted the kitchen yellow, and what amazed me was, I'm not there while they're painting. I come home, it's painted, and I look at the granite. The granite went from a kind of a tan granite to a peach pink looking. It looked horrible. And I called the painter up. I said, look, I'm so sorry. I'll pay you again. I know I have to. But I had to get that painted. I was just amazed on how much our brain fools us, for lack of a better term, with colors. I mean, how a color on the wall will make granite look like a completely different type of granite.
Or your flooring, or how does the light hit that gray? Now, grays are so in, but there's purple gray, there's green gray, there's how is the lighting hitting it, and how are things, like you said, the granite, the countertops, the flooring, how is all of that tying in together with that one color? Just because you pick that color swatch you like, it doesn't mean it's going to work in the space. Yeah. So again, having some design knowledge is obviously beneficial when you're a home stager. And I think that homeowners expect that from a home stager, that you know that.
And typically when they realize, and they do most of the time, that look, this is for one reason and one reason only, it's to get you more money. Your house is going to sell for more.
Yeah. I think an analogy that I love to use with homeowners is envision your house in a store on a shelf. Marketing statistics show, if it's at eye level, that's what sells the most. Or we can even talk about a liquor store, right? Top shelf is most expensive, right? So you want, that brandy that's on the top shelf. You can look at your house the same way. Your house is now a product on the market or in the store, right? How does it look and how does it compare to all the other homes? You want to be that top shelf brandy, or you want to be that cereal in the middle that everybody is going for, right? So really important for them to understand that their home now is becoming a house, which is a product that's being sold.
Well put. I like that. My daughter, Christina, is a art major, and she talked about just rules or laws or things that people like. So, for example, I asked her about the logo for the Apple products. It has the apple, the bite taken out, and how the leaf goes the same way as where the bite, opposed to the opposite direction. She was telling me how we humans like symmetry. Another thing, this is leading me to another thing that you probably won't remember this, but there's something about doing levels on even tables or threes, like on an end table or a coffee. Tell us a little bit about that real quick. I thought that was interesting.
You just want me to give out all my secrets so everybody can become a stager.
No, they still need to know what to put. What table to put it on and what to put on there.
That is correct. So staging, what my husband calls trinkets in odd numbers, is just more eye appealing. So that's the rule that we just kind of use.
There's some science behind it.
A lot of science. There's a lot of science behind it. Mm-hmm.
So things of three. You want
three or five, depending on what it is you're working with, right? So if you're working with a huge island, you're not going to put three little things. You're probably going to put five, right? So obviously you have to determine the size of that too. You don't want it all of them at the same height either. So you want that. So yeah.
Oh.
So keep in mind though, when staging, I don't really want people focusing on my things either, right? So again, that balance of making sure there's enough, but not too much, because some agents I know will tell people just take everything off all of your counters. Well, now it doesn't really look realistic and it looks a little cold and stale. So just having that balance and knowing what that balance is important too. Again, hiring a professional stager for that.
Yeah, no, I don't think you'll be able to give away any secrets. It's funny. My wife will oftentimes tell me, because I'll consult with, let's say, new agents or any people talking to me about stuff or asking for my advice, and I'll give it to them. And she would suggest, well, you don't want to give away what you do. And I go, look, the magic is doing it. People just don't do it. And there's also, with you specifically, there's some specifics that you couldn't possibly reveal on a podcast. I mean, you need to know what 5 items you got to put on that bar, or 3 items or whatever. Before we met, I had this other stager once tell me, I was with her and she said, I'm usually not there when you guys stage, but she said, hey, help me move this couch. And she was telling me to put it at this angle that was so odd to me. And I was sitting there, she's telling me this, and I'm thinking, gosh, that does not sound very appealing. And she goes, no, just be quiet. Just do it. We were friends. She said, just help me move it. So sure enough, I help her move it exactly where she wants. I take a couple steps backward and I go, oh my God, that looks great. My point being is that I would have never thought of that. And that's why you're around, because you can go in there and you can say, look, actually, this couch or whatever would look better here, this, that, or the other, where only based on your experience in a million years, what she had told me to do with that couch and put it and how to situate it, I thought there's no way. And she ended up putting a tree, indoor plant tree, and a table here, there. And again, she's explaining it to me and I'm thinking, ooh. And then she does it and I back up and I go, oh my goodness. That's fantastic. So trust your stager.
Yes. I was just going to say that it really is about trust, because so many times when I am doing a walk and talk with people, their response will be, really? That's what you want me to do? And I'm like, just trust me.
Yeah, there's no doubt. There's no doubt about it. Well, this has been, I think, extremely enlightening and hopefully beneficial to our listeners. Christy, if somebody did want to hire you and contact you, what is the best way for them to contact you?
Probably my cell phone, because it's what I have on me 24/7.
Tell our listeners what the number, you don't mind, or do you want them to call me and ask
fine.
me?
It's 714-345-9177.
Say that again.
714-345-9177.
Awesome. Well, I think that concludes our episode on staging and my little pet fly that came by. If anybody has any questions for myself or for Christy, please contact her. She's phenomenal. I can tell you that firsthand. And you know what? I actually have another question. Do you do modeling for someone that's not selling their house? Because we've had clients where they said, "Hey, I want you to come to our next house and do what you do."
Right.
You get a lot of that.
I don't have the time anymore. When I first started my business, when I was ramping up, I had a little more time. I do tell people they're welcome to send me pictures and so forth of spaces if they just want my opinion. And then I do have some people to refer to them for home decorating.
Right. All right.
But I do want to say one thing. If anybody is interested in any information on why to hire a home stager, or for an agent I have some wonderful statistical forms that they can share with their clients, especially those that don't really understand or believe in staging. It just kind of helps them understand it a little better. So they can contact me for that info.
Yeah. Once they see the data is crystal clear. I mean, this is going to make it's kind of silly, frankly, if you think about it, due to the fact that the buyer doesn't get any of that stuff when they're moved. But it's just, I would say it's just human nature. You can't get away from it. People walk into a house and it's about how they feel. And that's where the staging comes in. Yep. I mean, it's just extraordinarily effective. So, Christy, thank you. Seriously. Thank you so much for taking time.
Thanks for having me.
Your busy day, and people out there, contact her. You won't be disappointed. I know I'll see you soon. So that concludes another episode of the Jones Zone. If you like this episode, please subscribe, click like, watch some of our other shows. We've got some really informative shows, I think, for the audience out there. So, Christy, thank you.
Thank you, Darryl. Good luck.
See you later.
Cheers.